A $200 million movie was made about Michael Jackson. Then $15 million was spent to delete the most important chapter. On April 24, 2026, the biopic opened to 116 million trailer views and $278 million in week one, yet it scored just 38% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics called it sanitized. The film ends in 1988, and what comes after is exactly what someone paid to erase. A $200 million budget can buy almost anything in Hollywood, except consensus. The studio's official trailer for Michael pulled in 116 million views in its first 24 hours, outpacing even blockbuster superhero franchises. Box office trackers listed a $278 million global haul by the end of opening week, placing the film among the year's top earners. But numbers alone could not drown out the backlash. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film landed at just 38%, with critics calling it a spectacle that stops short of history. Headlines described the project as lavish but hollow, and reviews in Variety and The Guardian accused the filmmakers of cutting away the very chapters that made Michael Jackson a figure of worldwide debate. The film's official runtime ends in 1988, just before the doors to Neverland close and the public record grows tangled. In the shadow of these statistics, the question is not whether the movie succeeded, it is what it chose to leave behind, and why. In Gary, Indiana, a small house on Jackson Street once echoed with the sound of 5 brothers rehearsing late into the night. Michael, the 7th child, stood out from the beginning. His voice, his energy, the way he moved. Under the strict guidance of his father, Joe Jackson, the Jackson 5 signed with Motown in 1969. Their first single, I Want You Back, hit #1, launching Michael into the spotlight that would never dim. By age 11, he was performing on national television, his childhood traded for rehearsals and recording sessions. Years later, accepting the Grammy Legend Award in 1993, Michael said, "My childhood was taken away from me. There was no Christmas. There were no birthdays. Those were exchanged for hard work, struggle, and pain." As a solo artist, he found a new voice. Off the Wall in 1979 brought 4 top 10 hits. But it was Thriller in 1982 that redefined pop music forever. With sales topping 34 million copies, Thriller became the best-selling album of all time. The world watched as Michael moonwalked across the stage at Motown, 25 in 1983, a moment that became legend. By the end of the 1980s, he was more than a star. He was a global phenomenon, his influence stretching from music to fashion to dance. But behind the spectacle, the pressures and sacrifices of that early rise would cast a long shadow over everything that followed. By 1988, Michael Jackson stood at the summit of global fame. The Bad World Tour shattered records, drawing more than 4 million fans across 123 concerts and grossing $125 million. Newspapers chronicled scenes of fainting crowds and city streets brought to a standstill. At the 1993 Grammy Legend Award, Jackson said his childhood was taken away from him. There was no Christmas, there were no birthdays. Those were exchanged for hard work, struggle, and pain. Offstage, his life unfolded in ways rarely addressed on screen. In May 1994, Jackson married Lisa Marie Presley in a private ceremony in the Dominican Republic. The union lasted less than 2 years. In November 1996, he wed Debbie Rowe, who would become the mother of his two eldest children. Each relationship drew intense scrutiny, but the details faded behind the glare of his celebrity. Creative output continued. The History album arrived in 1995, blending autobiography and social commentary. In 2001, Invincible debuted, marking his final studio release. These years were marked by both artistic ambition and a growing sense of isolation. Stadiums still filled, but the world outside Neverland was changing. The film's story ends here, at the height of his adult stardom, before the allegations, before the legal battles, before the legacy became a battlefield. Neverland Ranch stretched across 2,700 acres, a private world of carousels, animals, and endless lawns, far removed from the glare of Los Angeles. In May 1992, a 13-year-old named Jordan Chandler first entered that world. His father, Evan Chandler, a Beverly Hills dentist, reached out to Jackson's team about a possible film project for his son. Over the next year, visits to Neverland became frequent. Then, in July 1993, Evan filed a civil lawsuit accusing Jackson of child sexual abuse. The Los Angeles Police Department's Sexually Exploited Child Unit opened an investigation, and the case drew the full attention of national media. LAPD officials confirmed in public statements that their inquiry was active, but no criminal charges were filed. Jordan Chandler, the alleged victim, refused to testify before the grand jury. Prosecutors announced there was not enough evidence to indict. The legal battle shifted to civil court, setting in motion a sealed settlement whose terms would later shape what could and could not be shown on screen. In January 1994, a confidential agreement brought the civil suit between Michael Jackson and the Chandler family to an abrupt end. The settlement totaled $23 million, with $5 million earmarked for attorney fees, figures confirmed in court docket summaries and estate financial filings. The terms were filed under seal in Los Angeles Superior Court, protected by a court-ordered confidentiality clause that has never been made public in full. What is known is that the agreement included language stating the payment does not constitute an admission of liability, and that the parties agree the matters are resolved without any finding of wrongdoing. This was not a verdict, but a contractual closure that bound both sides to silence. The settlement also contained a far-reaching provision, a strict prohibition against any future dramatization or mention of the Chandlers in film, television, or other media. Attorneys for both Jackson and the Chandlers signed off on the language, ensuring that the details of the case, and even the identities involved, would remain legally off-limits for decades. The power of that sealed document would resurface years later, shaping what the world could and could not see in the official story. In November 2003, Michael Jackson was arrested at Neverland Ranch after the broadcast of Living with Michael Jackson, a documentary by Martin Bashir that reignited public scrutiny. Prosecutors charged him with 7 counts of child molestation and 2 counts of administering an intoxicant to a minor. The trial began in February 2005 at the Santa Barbara County Superior Court, drawing global media attention. Over the course of 4 months, the jury heard testimony from dozens of witnesses, including defense appearances by Macaulay Culkin and Wade Robson, both of whom denied any abuse. After 32 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a unanimous verdict on June 13, 2005, not guilty on all 14 charges. The courtroom transcript records the judge's words. Jackson was acquitted. The state had failed to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. 4 years later, on June 25, 2009, Jackson died at his Los Angeles home. The county coroner's report listed the cause as acute propofol intoxication, with benzodiazepines as contributing factors. The death was ruled a homicide. Dr. Conrad Murray, Jackson's personal physician, stood trial in 2011. On November 7th, a jury found Murray guilty of involuntary manslaughter. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison, serving less than 2 years before release. In the official record, the legal arc closes with an acquittal and a homicide ruling. Yet the arguments and doubts never faded from public debate. In March 2019, HBO aired Leaving Neverland, a 4-hour documentary that reignited global debate over Michael Jackson's legacy. Wade Robson and James Safechuck, both former child performers, described years of alleged abuse at Neverland Ranch. The documentary's release triggered a wave of press coverage, protests, and renewed legal filings. In Los Angeles County Superior Court, Robson and Safechuck revived civil lawsuits against MJJ Productions and MJJ Ventures, citing newly extended statutes of limitations under California law. Court records show Robson's case was refiled on June 12, 2024, and Safechuck's on July 3, 2024, each assigned a new docket number and accepted for trial. After years of procedural battles, the court set a trial date for November 14, 2026, less than 7 months after the biopic's premiere. The estate's legal team argued that prior settlements barred the claims, but the judge allowed the cases to proceed. With the press tracking every motion and both men scheduled to testify, the lawsuits cast a long shadow over the film's release and the official story it chose to tell. A single clause buried in the 1994 civil settlement between Michael Jackson and the Chandler family dictated the fate of a $200 million production. According to investigations by Variety and The Hollywood Reporter, the agreement barred any dramatization or mention of the Chandlers in film or television. The restriction went unnoticed until after principal photography wrapped, when estate lawyers flagged it during a late-stage legal review. The discovery halted post-production and triggered a logistical scramble. Over 22 days, cast and crew were summoned back to re-film the entire third act at a cost of $15 million. Payroll records and union call sheets confirm the extended shoot, while insurance filings show the studio filed a supplemental claim for the overruns. Director Antoine Fuqua later acknowledged in interviews that the original ending, which depicted the 1993 allegations, was fully shot but had to be scrapped. Producer Graham King described receiving an extra $10 million to oversee the reshoots, calling the removal a legal necessity. Estate representatives issued statements emphasizing that the settlement clause forced their hand, not creative preference. The final cut now ends in 1988, at the height of Jackson's career, omitting any visual reference to the controversies that followed. Deleted scenes, including a dramatization of the Chandler case, remain locked away, their existence confirmed only by production dailies and script drafts. In the end, the film's narrative was shaped less by artistic vision than by contractual power, leaving the most disputed chapter of Jackson's life off-screen. A $200 million movie can rewrite memory, but not erase history. As legal battles and new claims move into courtrooms this fall, the omitted chapters still shape public debate. Jackson once said that his childhood was taken away from him. The struggle over his legacy is far from finished. Share your thoughts below.